Hey guys, it's Billy again, coming at you this time with a vinyl update. A long overdue vinyl update, actually. Been kind of sparse with videos, just finding time to get them done. But anyway, I spent a little bit of time in Florida, getting ready for spring training. Went down early, shot a fantasy camp. It's kind of our kickoff to spring training, and then I'm back home for a couple weeks, then back down for spring training. But during that time, I got there and I arrived in Florida a little early, one day early, and had time to hit a few record stores. It was kind of unexpected, last minute kind of thing, or I would have called or reached out to some of you friends, Brad or Ron or Tam. Trying to think, that's probably the three that are closest to that area where I'm going to be. So I'll definitely reach out to you guys and see if we can make a point to get together when I do go back down here in a few weeks. Anyway, I hit 3 record stores. I made a point to write them down because the last time I traveled and visited some record stores, I didn't write them down, and I couldn't remember. I did a terrible job. I found some good stuff, but I did a terrible job letting you guys know about those stores. But anyway, the 3 stores that I did visit were Rust and Wax, Top 5 Records, and Confused Records. So we'll get to those here a little bit more in a minute. But let's start off with Rust and Wax. Rust and Wax was it was in a kind of an industrial building. Honestly, it was hard. There was no signage outside. There was I believe a motorcycle shop, a vintage motorcycle shop that shared the space, and so you kind of walk into the store, and it's they have, I'd say, 3 or 4 shelves of records, mostly used records. Some pretty decent stuff in there as well, but nothing like a true record store. This is more like a booth in an antique mall, but it's not antiques really. There's just like 6 booths in this one big open space, and then over here is the motorcycle shop. One of the booths had records, and it was Rust and Wax, which hence I'm sure Rust and Wax, the Rusty Motorcycles Wax vinyl records, so kind of worked. Anyhow, they had like 4, it was an unmanned booth, 4 little sections that had records, nothing on the wall, so it's like not your typical record store is what I'm trying to get at. So I started looking through. They had everything organized and categorized very well. And so the first thing I came across was, this is a new pressing this just really, I was very unfamiliar with. Joshua Headley, Mr. Jukebox. Just taking a look at the cover here and what he's wearing, knowing it's a newer country release. This is from 2018 on Third Man Records. So while I was in the store, I pulled it up on YouTube, gave a couple of these songs a listen, and really liked what I heard, and thought, you know what, for 15 bucks or whatever it was, 15, 16 bucks was the price of the record. I thought, I'm definitely going to give this a go. I can't not like it, because like I said, I liked what I heard, and the odds are I'm going to like the rest of the stuff. So it's a very throwback sound, very vintage sound, but very, very, very cool. A little baritone vocal. Dig it. Can't wait to have some time and give that a spin. So that was the first thing I found at Rust and Wax. Then as I was making my way around, I typically, I don't know how you guys do, but I typically tend to go one of 2 ways when I go into a record store, especially if they have their stuff organized and categorized. First thing is, if I'm looking for something specific, I go right for that. 9 times out of 10, of course, you strike out because I'm looking for pretty hard to find rare stuff. Or I'll just start at the beginning of the alphabet and work my way around, flipping through. So that's what I did there. Started at A, so made it to H before I found anything else, and I didn't find anything else till I got all the way to S, which it was well worth the wait. This is an original U.S. pressing, just an absolutely gorgeous pressing of Savatage, Hall of the Mountain King. So here we go there, and a great price on the on that gorgeous Atlantic label. This thing looks like it had never been played. The previous owner obviously took care of it because it came in a MoFi sleeve already. But what a great album. I do have a copy of this already, but I certainly wasn't going to pass it up for the price. You find these things, if you're lucky, you find these things on eBay or Discogs, and they're pretty pricey. Not that this one wasn't pricey. It was a 35, 40 bucks, but still, in the condition it's in, you know, you're talking VG++. The vinyl itself is just great. Very glad to have that and add that another copy of that to the collection. It's always nice to have that stuff because you never know if you're gonna maybe need to work a trade with somebody at some point. So it's not like I'm being a hoarder and just trying to hoard all the copies I can of that. It's nice to have extras from time to time because so many times you find another collector that's got some nice stuff that you want, and you try and work a trade, and you're like, well, I can't get rid of that because it's my only copy. So it's nice to have extra stuff. And then lastly, from Rust and Wax, laugh. I'm giving you the, go ahead and hit the laugh button right now. But Winger, it's good stuff. We all joke about it, but it's very good. I didn't have a copy of this Winger record. So there's the vinyl here. There's the back. But the vinyl is, again, pristine on that nice Atlantic label. Just needs a little bit of a cleaning. Like I said, for some reason, this record has kind of just gone by the wayside with me. It's not that I don't like it or don't enjoy it, because I actually do. I just never have seen it in the wild. You don't typically see this. I'm not sure what year this is from. 89 probably, 88, 89. So you don't see these very often. So I was glad to see that, especially for 17 bucks. So that was all I picked up at Rust and Wax. And then from there I went and met a buddy who used to be our USA Today shooter here in town. And I met him in Delray Beach. And in Delray Beach there's a quaint little place that is so cool. I believe it's called the Silver Ball Museum, and they have it's like an arcade that has vintage and restored pinball machines and arcade games, and they also have a bar and grill in there as well. So we sat there, we had a little lunch, we played some video games and some pinball, took some pictures of some of the classic pinball machines. They had the Ted Nugent machine, they had a brand new Iron Maiden game, which is really great. Of course they had the Kiss machine, Evel Knievel, Elton John, I mean, Guns N' Roses, you name it. Of course, then they would have Pac-Man, Donkey Kong Jr., Galaga Asteroids. It was really fun lunchtime kind of meetup with my buddy Jason, who is now in Delray Beach, shooting a lot of the stuff for USA Today down there, shooting the Miami Marlins as well. So very nice meetup. So after that, Jason had to go and head out because he was shooting the Miami Heat game that evening. So we parted ways, and I ended up heading back north and stopped in, I'm not sure if this was still in Delray Beach or if this was in Lake something, Lake Worth. But anyway, the name of the store is Top 5 Records. And so I walked in. I will say that when I got to the door, it looked like it was closed. Everything was dark. It was really, there was no light. It wasn't really well illuminated. There was nothing in the front window, no signage or anything. So I kind of pulled on the door, and lo and behold, it opened up, and there's a guy in there, and yes, they're open. Very clean, very well-kept record store. I will say at first, the owner's name, which slips my mind at this minute, I want to say it's Jim, starts with a J. I wrote it down because I actually have his phone number. Anyway, I will say at first the owner didn't seem too nice, But you get that a lot when you go into enough record stores. You know, record store owners they're indifferent at times. Sometimes they're just doing busy work. You know, cleaning records or filing things or whatever. But it was not that he was rude. Please don't take it that way. It was just that he wasn't overly friendly at the beginning. So I made my way around, doing what I typically do, looking for things, except for when I come into a store like this store, Top 5 Records. Right in front, he had 2 bins that were new arrivals. I think personally every record store should have a new arrival bin. That's just a pet peeve of mine. I like the thought of being able to go into a record store, especially a record store that I'm going to frequent often, to go into that store and look through the new arrival bin. You know, I don't want to have to dig through 50,000 records to find the 200 that you just got this week. Do you guys feel me? Do you guys agree with me on that? Let me know. I love a store that has well-kept new arrivals bins, and this store did. So in the new arrivals bin, I found a absolutely fantastic and beautiful copy of Black Sabbath's Never Say Die. This is an original first U.S. pressing here. And one thing that I did really dig is you can see how he had everything kept. 1986 original, nice. So a lot of the things he would have, you know, VG Plus, excellent, mint, you know, near mint copy. He would grade the cover as well as the vinyl. So, got it. Still got it in here this way. There's your back cover there. And this was not a bad price at all. Normally, you know, some people get kind of goofy when we start talking about what you paid for records, you know. So it just needs a good cleaning. But this thing looks like it's seen very, very little turntable time at all. It's on that the mid-'80s Warner Brothers with the stripes, like kind of like a paper, you know, notebook paper label. But you know, people get a little bit goofy when we start talking about what we paid for records, and this wasn't bad. This was $20. You know, it wasn't. I didn't think that was bad at all, considering that new pressings cost $20. This is a beautiful first pressing, and I do have a copy of this, but it's nothing like this as far as condition goes. So I was glad to add that to the collection. So as I picked that up and first thing I did was I picked it up, and before I ever start really fingering the records and start, you know, pulling them out of their sleeves and everything, if the owner is around or there's an employee around or something, I always have the courtesy to ask them, hey, do you mind if I take this out of the sleeve? And usually, you know, they see how I'm handling the record, and then that kind of eases their mind. Plus, it opens up a little bit of little communication there. So with that, I told him, you know, you have a nice store. I couldn't help but notice, looking through everything, it's very immaculate. Everything looks good. You take great care and great pride in your records, and that opened that line of communication. He then became very, very open and friendly, and told me that he had been a collector for X amount of years. You know, I'm talking like 40, 45, 50 years. This guy was a little older gentleman, probably in his 60s, and he had probably been collecting at least 40 years. And I think he said he had been there for like 15, 16, 17 years. And he said first thing I did was I noticed that there was no junk in here. And by junk, I don't mean like, you know, dollar records. There was no common records in here. You didn't have your beat up, you know, $5 copies of Billy Joel, Elton John, Fleetwood Mac, things of that nature. Matter of fact, there were no beat-up records in here. It didn't matter how rare the record was or whatever. Everything he had was super, super nice. The price did kind of dictate that, you know, or reflect that. But I was kind of intrigued by the fact that where's the $5 records or $6 or $7 or $8, the more common type records for either your beginner or somebody that maybe is just wanting to pick up a few things. That's not wanting to spend 20 or 30 bucks. And he said he had made the decision whenever he opened the store that he wasn't going to put anything in the store that he wouldn't really have condition-wise in his collection, which makes a lot of sense. Obviously, as far as listening styles or listening tastes concerned, those vary greatly from one end of the spectrum to the other. So that's not what he meant by he wouldn't put it in the store if it wasn't in his collection, but what he was really referring to was condition, which is, that's what it comes down to. He did say that it's not that he doesn't sell the lower end or beat up records, banged up records, because obviously when he's buying enough collections, you're going to get those things. But what he does is he sells those at like flea markets and swap meets and things like that, or he has a guy that takes a lot of that stuff off of his hands. So it was very nice and a breath of fresh air to go into a store that really took great pride in what they had, how they presented it, and I'm definitely going to be going back. As a matter of fact, I think his name was John. I got his phone number, and he wants me to send him a list of certain things that I'm looking for, because when I went down there, he didn't have his country music. He had it all pulled. So like one shelf, maybe 400 or 500 records, country music records. It was empty because he had just emptied that bin for a huge after Christmas and New Year's sale that he hadn't got it. He had just cleared all that stuff out and was getting ready to put the country back out, but he hadn't gotten around to it yet. So I'm looking for obviously some really nice older pressings of Waylon Jennings and Johnny Paycheck and things like that. That he said he did definitely have a lot of that stuff, and maybe even some Haggard stuff. I'm always looking for good quality pressings of that stuff. So I'm going to send him a list of some of that stuff that I'm looking for, and he's going to pull some of that stuff for when I go back down in a few weeks. So I'm definitely going to be going back down there. And then last but not least, well, it wasn't last. There's two more here. So this is another one that I found. Huge Blackfoot fan, Leonard Skinner as well. So this is Ricky Medlock. Of course, he's in Skinner now. Started out with Skinner, played a little bass on the first record, I believe, but I don't know if it was uncredited, but if you've watched any of the documentaries, you know what I'm talking about. But he went on to fame with Blackfoot. But this is Ricky Medlock and Blackfoot. I've never seen this. This is from 1987. And being a huge Blackfoot fan, I wasn't going to let that sit there no matter what the price. It was only $9, so I decided to go ahead and pick it up. Again, seemed like we got a little bit of a theme going on here with this Atlantic label. But here's the back. He's kind of looking like a little bit David Lee Rothish there, isn't he? Kind of like from the Women and Children First poster that I used to have hanging up behind me as a goof. But I haven't given this a listen yet. Matter of fact, I haven't given hardly any of these a listen. I've had very little time since I've been back, but can't wait to give this a spin. Ricky Medlock and Blackfoot. And then lastly, every now and then we splurge for a record, and this was one that I stood there. This is one of those wall records. Melinda Murphy. Shout out to you, Melinda. I hope you're feeling better today. Melinda had just posted a video. It was one of her most recent videos, and she was talking about how you go into record stores and they've got their standard stuff, and then they have the holy crap wall. And that's kind of like, that's what this guy had. He had all the good stuff up on the wall. Not all the good stuff, but everything on the wall was good in one way or another. And this next record is one of those. I have an original pressing of this, and it's fairly nice, but when I saw this and asked to look at it because it said, mint, beautiful, whatever, I was like, okay, well, let's just see. So this is an original first pressing of Iron Maiden's Number of the Beast. Like I said, I have an original pressing as well, but this one looked like it had just never been played. Just gorgeous, gorgeous copy. Can't see much there, but you get the idea. So when I pulled it down and looked at it, I got to be honest. At first, the price was kind of like, well, I've already got a copy. I don't need to get another one. The price was really keeping me from just saying, okay, I'll take it. But you guys know that collect this kind of stuff. You don't see stuff in this kind of condition. Very, very seldom do you see that. And the price really didn't scare me away. At first, it kind of did, but once I pulled it down and got my hands on it and really give it a once over, I was like, ah. Anyway, $50. I'll tell you. Yes, it's a lot, but man, it is so worth it. I guarantee you won't find another one in this nice a condition. And the thing that I really like to drive home is, yes, $50 is a lot of money to anybody. It's a lot of money to me. I'm sure it's a lot of money to you guys. But when you put it in perspective, that's like 2.5 new records. You know, would I rather have 2.5 new pressings of, say, Eric Church's new album or Jamie Johnson's new album, or a mint original, 1982 Number of the Beast? You see what I'm saying? That's how I justify that number to me. Everybody probably does it a little bit differently, but that's how I rationalize that. So then, lastly here, so that was everything I picked up at Rust and, or not Rust and Wax, at Top 5 Records. And then the last place I went into, which I'm going to have to wrap this one up and do my other trade in another video because it's just getting way too long here. The last place I stopped was Confused Records, and that was the one that was closest to the hotel in, I guess it was West Palm. I'm not 100% sure, but anyway, the name of the place is Confused Records, and I'm just going to be real frank with you guys. I walked up, and this place, it looked like a hoarder's paradise. I'm sure the guy is a super nice guy, and I don't mean to talk bad of anybody, but the place was just trashed, filthy. And when I say trashed, I mean literally trash all over the place. Records and CDs and stuff just thrown, and then trash and shoes. I mean, there was no rhyme or reason. It didn't make any sense. So if I didn't have my friend with me, I probably would have turned around and just walked out. But he was looking for some CDs, and the guy did have a lot of CDs. Don't get me wrong, I've been in dirty places before. I've dug in basements. I've dug in attics. It's not that I'm above any of that. It was just that I didn't feel like, at this point, I didn't feel like digging. There was no organization to the place whatsoever, and I just really didn't feel like it. I wasn't up to the task at that point. So I went in. My buddy was looking through the CDs, and first thing I did was ask the guy, okay, is there any kind of organization here? And he's like, well, what are you looking for? I told him, I said, well, what do you got for country? Country music. And he's like, you done passed it. I mean, he was just real frank and to the point and kind of rude, which I totally get it, because I was probably a little bit off-putting by just the condition of the store. I was like, well, is there any organization to this place? And which there wasn't. He claimed that there was, but there wasn't. Anyway, after a couple minutes, he walked me up to the country area, which was 2 rows of records. I asked him, I said, I pulled up a couple records. I'm like, how are they priced? He said, everything in the bin's $5. Just plain and simple like that. So I'm like, okay. And so there was a big stack of records sitting on top. I mean, I kid you guys not. On top of every bin, there would be a stack of records this high. You'd have to move it to look at these records, and then you'd have to move these records to get into those records. And when I started looking through stacks that were sitting on top of where the country records were, he got all freaked out, like, those aren't priced yet, and kind of was barking at me. And I'm like, okay, well, there was a Hank Williams Jr. record in there that I was kind of interested in, and I'm like, how much for this one? And it was... I don't even remember which one it was, whether it was Whiskey Bent Hellbound or something. And I'm like, how much is this one? Figuring it'd be, $2 or $3, less than $5. He's like, $10. I'm like, okay. So I moved on from there. I started looking through his $5 records, most of which were $1 or $2 records at most, honestly. And I'm a huge country music fan, but when you start talking about some of the stuff that was in here, it was just generic stuff that is literally $1 or $2 records that he was asking $5 for. So I did end up finding 2 records in there that I picked up, looked at, and the vinyl looked very pristine and immaculate on these. But long story short, I ended up picking 2 records from there, both Johnny Paycheck records. So we have this one here, which is Everybody's Got a Family, and this is the one that has a Cocaine Train on it, I believe. Yeah, Stay Away from the Cocaine Train. Ragged Old Truck, which is an old Billy Joe Shaver song. Some really, really good stuff on here. But, and I have a beater copy of this. Like I said, I'm not above having beater copies. There are beater copies in my collection. But I'm to the point to where I'm trying to upgrade it. But I just want to let you guys know I'm not above buying beat-up copies. It's just that I'm not going to buy beat-up copies for $5, especially when they're $1 record. So I ended up picking that up for $5, and I picked up this one for $5. New York Town. This is a live album. Here, some pretty good stuff in here, recorded live at the Lone Star Cafe in New York, New York. So that was my my experience of confused records. I was very confused when I walked out of there. I'm not gonna lie. So let me just jump into these. So I picked up a couple other things. Since it's a vinyl update, it's a vinyl update. Let's make it a little bit long, shall we? Here's another one of the things that I picked up recently. The Best of Whitesnake. It's a Japanese pressing. This is, I believe, the last or next to last album I need to fill my Whitesnake discography. Can't wait to get my box set completed. I haven't even begun working on it, but I'm gonna definitely be one that I'm going to make. So happy to have that one. And then there's a new guy that I want to mention who has. He's not a stranger or a newbie by any stretch of the imagination to the vinyl community. He's been watching videos, commenting on videos for quite some time. He and I have been Facebook friends for a little bit, and we ended up making a trade. He's wanting to jump in. I'm trying to get him to make some YouTube videos, join the vinyl community. And hopefully he does that. And the guy I'm speaking of is Ernie Eldridge. So Ernie and I made a trade. Ernie's got a really broad range of taste, kind of like I do. He loves his country music, and he's really well rounded on his country music. It's not just outlaw country, or it's not just new country. He's got some of that old folk country with some of those type guys, you know, the David Allan Coe, the Kinky Friedman, some of those guys that you never even really heard of, but he also has some really good rock and roll stuff as well. So we ended up making a trade. He picked up a collection, and he always shows me, I think he likes to rub it in sometimes, and he'll shoot me pictures on Facebook Messenger of, hey, check out what I just picked up. And it's great to have those friends like that you can share your excitement with. But then there's also times that he's like, hey, you interested in any of this? So this was one of those times. Anyhow, Ernie and I ended up making a trade, which sometimes can be difficult. I'm not going to lie. Making trades with people sometimes can be tough because, you've got a certain value associated with a certain record. They've got a certain value they want to associate it. So you want to get the most out of your stuff as well as they as well. So sometimes it can be a little bit tricky going back and forth. But anyhow, Ernie had shown me a couple things that I knew I really wanted. Some of them had some decent value to them. Some of them had some decent value to me that maybe not monetary value. Spit it out, Billy. Maybe not a whole lot of monetary value to anyone else out there, but some sentimental value and things like that to me. I knew what Ernie was looking for, and I knew I had a couple things, little tricks up my sleeve that we could just say, here you go. I can make that happen. So Ernie, like I said, he's a huge Billy Joe Shaver fan, and he's been wanting a copy of Billy Joe Shaver's old 5 and Dimers Like Me. And those of you that know, I have found quite a few copies of that. For some reason, I seem to be those things, just I can sniff them out. I don't know why. I mean, I have probably found 8 or 9 of those things in the last 5 years. And what's strange is you'll go forever without seeing them, and then you'll run into 2 in 6 months, and that's how that works. So I had one of those set back, and I told him he had mentioned to me that He really would like to get his hands on one. I said, I think I can probably help you out with that, bud. So anyhow, jump in and show you what we have here. So this is a GNR Lies. This is the one with the wife beating. I think that's it's either a late first or might be a second pressing. The reason I think it's a second pressing is because of the censored cover here. I believe the true first pressings don't have this bar on them. But this is a BMG, yeah, BMG Records copy here. But this is definitely. So I have another copy that doesn't have this wife beater headline on it, and so I wanted to have this one as well. So now I have two different versions of that. So it's nice to have that in the collection. I knew this was kind of the keystone piece in the trade. I knew that one, you know, had some pretty good value associated with it, as well as this Poison's Flesh and Blood. Real nice copy. And again, this is another BMG music copy there as well. This was one of those that I was telling you that really might not have a whole lot of monetary value associated with it, but this is the first Marshall Tucker Band LP, which I love. It's such a great record. But the thing that, and of course I have a copy of that as well already, but the thing that attracted me to this one was it's a white label promo. There you go. If you guys can see that. Hopefully it focused there. Beautiful, beautiful copy. I was really, of all the things, this was the one that I wanted the most. I was, you know, you don't see stuff like this floating around too much, and I was glad to be able to get that, work that out in a trade. Thank you for that, Ernie. Another one here, George Thorogood and the Destroyers. This is, I believe, their first record, if I'm not mistaken. But again, a really nice, clean copy in the shrink. This is from, what year did this come out? I'm not 100% sure, but love the, of course it needs a good cleaning, but I love the label there on Rounder Records. 1977 is when that one came out. So I have a bunch of Thorogood and the Destroyers stuff in the collection, but I've, for some reason, never did stumble across this one. So glad to have that early Thorogood in the collection. Moving right along, getting on a Little Feat kick here. This is Time Loves a Hero. This is one of those bands that I can put them on, and I really enjoy hearing their stuff. It just kind of takes me back, takes me away. So it's on that Warner Brothers, Hollywood Boulevard streetscape, and there's the back there. Like I said, I'm just kind of flying through these because I let my other portion of the video run a little long. Here's one again that has that sentimental value. This is the Jim Croce collection. I did not have this. This is on this is 20 greatest hits on, I don't even, as advertised on TV and radio. I'm not even sure what label it's on. I was thinking it's Precision Records, Toronto, Canada. So there we go. I love Jim Croce. Like I said, it takes me back to a kid with mom and dad playing his stuff in the background. It was always on in the house. And this is one that I've never seen before. And Ernie was kind enough to let that go. As well as a couple things here. Some Don Williams. This is Cafe Carolina gold stamp promo, or as Peaches says, gold stamp promo. So there's your gold stamp promo there, Don Williams. A couple Don Williams things that I did not have. This one I believe I do have, which is New Moves, but again, it's a gold stamp promo. It's just the regular pressing, but of course, it's nice to always have a little bit different things to go along. But I do have this copy, but it was nice to get it with the gold stamp promo. A couple other things that he had there. Speaking of Kinky Friedman, we talked about him earlier. Very, very different country, folk, cool stuff. Let me get the back here. This is from 19. Of course, it doesn't say 1974. But on this album, somebody did just send me an 8-track of this as well. On this album, it's got Billy Sherrill, Waylon Jennings, Tom Paul, Glazer, Willie Nelson. They're on this album as well. So it's one that I am definitely glad to have. As you can see, not in the best of condition, but I didn't have it, so I'm willing to check it out, and he was willing to send it my way just out of the kindness of his heart. This wasn't even involved in the trade. He just sent it over, so thank you for that, Ernie. So if it's one of those things that I really do dig, eventually I will go out and upgrade like we all do. So there's Kinky Friedman, and then last but not least, we have Taco After 8. A little putting on the Ritz here, so got to have your 80s fix, and for those of you who are 80s music fans, here's your Taco. I didn't have this one. Like I said, that's just another one of those things. I mean, as many records as I have, there are certain things that just, for somehow or another, fly under the radar, and this is one of those that I had as a kid. I probably had the 45 or the 7-inch single, and now I've got the album. So thank you to that, Ernie. Thank you guys for tuning in. I know it was a little bit of a long one, but that's how vinyl updates are at times. It might be a while before I do another update, but I will certainly do one when I get back from Florida, because there's going to be some new stuff to show. So guys, I hope everybody's doing well. Thank you as always for tuning in, liking, commenting, subscribing. But guys, I hope everybody's doing well. Take care. Peace.